Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of On the Call with Jake Marsh. My name is Jake Marsh. This is episode number 2. If you're joining us after listening to episode number 1, I say thank you and welcome back, and I appreciate all of your support. If you're a brand new listener, I say welcome. Thank you for giving me a shot. I am Jake Marsh. I'm a 30-year-old play-by-play broadcaster and content creator, and this podcast is not going to be your typical sports desk debate show. It is going to be sports from my lens, and I spend my week on social media watching games, and I document things that I think are interesting and that I want to share with some of you. So we're going to go down the list, and from the biggest sports storylines of the week all the way down to some quirky segments and an audience Q&A coming later in the show. In episode 1, we had Adam Schefter. I wanted to start this thing off with a bang. I think we did just that. So if you haven't listened to the Adam Schefter episode yet, go ahead and try that. But this episode, we're going to try things a little bit differently. Again, we're still experimenting a little bit. We're going to go guestless for episode number 2. And then when this thing's all said and done, you guys can give me your feedback. Again, this is our show. I want you guys to let me know, do you prefer a guest every episode? Do you just want to hear from me every episode? Do you want me to sprinkle it in and balance it a little bit? But that's kind of the idea here for episode number 2. There are also a ton of different stories to talk about that I'm excited to share with you guys. And all right, let's get into it. Episode 2 of On the Call with Jake Marsh starts now.
It's caught! Touchdown! It's time to dance! Oh my goodness! Gloves are off! Simmons for 3! Bang! Oh, that is swatted away! Shefflin brings the boom! This is Hawk. A step back 3! Oh yeah! The shot of a lifetime! Barstool Sports! Arizona Bowl champions! It's good! It's over! He got it! He got it! He got it! It's 6!
All right, this is episode 2 of On the Call with Jake Marsh, and we have to start this episode off with the New York Knickerbockers. Folks, they did it. 53 years later, the New York Knicks are champions of the National Basketball Association. It was just an incredible run by an incredible team. It's not often that you see a team's biggest piece of adversity come in the first round, and that's what happened with New York when they played the Atlanta Hawks. But after that, sweep, Knicks in 5, eventually hoisting the Larry O'Brien Trophy over the weekend down in San Antonio. And I think I'm about to present some stats to you that might either blow your mind or you might shrug or whatever. But I thought they were interesting. Let's start off with one I saw from Roger Sherman on X. And he said, craziest stat for me, the Knicks had the number 1, number 3, and number 5 biggest comeback wins in NBA Finals history, all in the same finals. Folks, when you're watching sports, I feel like one of the main reasons why people watch are to find out what's going to happen. You don't know what's going to happen. In this NBA Finals, in the games the Knicks came back and won, it felt like we all knew what was going to happen. A lot of these games had very similar scripts, right? Spurs dominate the first quarter. Do the Knicks have what it takes to compete on this big stage? Are the lights too bright for them? Knicks chip away into halftime. Back and forth in the third quarter. Spurs take a little bit of a lead in the fourth. And then the Knicks come out on top when it matters most. Game number 4 was one of the most incredible finishes that I've seen in my 30 years on this planet Earth. The OG Anunoby tip-in will be remembered as one of the more insane finishes that we will ever see on all of our times here on planet Earth. And the fact that that was just one of 3 of the top 5 comebacks in NBA Finals history, all happening in a 5-game span. I mean, the New York Knicks just one of the more likable teams that you can ever think of, especially coming from the New York market, right? It is so easy to hate on these New York teams, but this team is different, right? They don't have any big egos. They've got guys who show up, go to work, and win for their city, and that is exactly what happened to the 2025-26 New York Knicks. So shout out to Jalen Brunson, Josh Hart, Coach Mike Brown, and the entire squad. Just absolutely insane. And I'm a Heat fan. I live here in Miami, but it's hard not to be happy for the city of New York and the New York Knicks. They are champions of the world. Look at us in 2026. We've crowned champions in college football, the Indiana football team, and the New York Knicks. Who would ever thought that would have happened? I mean, a Long Islander who went to Indiana, they're having themselves a year so far. I assume there's a handful of those out there, but just an insane run for New York. Some extra stats here that I have here from the NBA Finals. The significance of the number 613. If you look up at the Madison Square Garden rafters, you'll see normal jersey numbers for all of the legends, and then a 613. That belongs to Red Holzman, the legendary coach who led the Knicks to their only 2 NBA titles back in the 70s. It represents his total regular season coaching wins for the franchise. You have this guy, took the Knicks to the promised land twice, and he ends up with a random number. We'll throw it up in the rafters. 613 regular season wins. Just to recognize him, the number obviously is a large number, but hey, it's just a number and it's a large number, so we'll recognize that. Well, fast forward 50 plus years later, what date did the Knicks win the title this year? 6/13. Boom, crazy. And I know we have our segment coming later, but I can also drop wild. That's pretty cool, folks. I mean, I know I love to just ooze at the thought of these crazy numbers and coincidences, and that's one of the premises of this entire show, if I'm being quite honest. But come on, even if you're not a big believer in those types of geeky, nerdy stats, that's insane. Another one regarding some personnel on the New York Knicks. Jalen Brunson and Mikal Bridges. Obviously, 2 of the most influential players on this team. They now have the 2 biggest wins of their basketball careers in the city of San Antonio, Texas. That's right. Obviously, you have the win on Saturday night against the Spurs, where they hosted the Larry O'Brien Trophy as teammates of the New York Knicks, with Josh Hart, of course, who also played with them at Villanova. But you go back 8 years prior to this year, 2018, the end of the NCAA tournament, the national championship, Villanova over Michigan. Both Jalen Brunson and Mikal Bridges were on the Final Four all-tournament team. So it's almost like good things are bound to happen when Jalen Brunson and Mikal Bridges are playing basketball in San Antonio, Texas. Different venue. The Spurs Arena is different than the Alamo Dome, where the Final Four was in 2018, also was last year when the Florida Gators won it all. Shout out Todd Golden and his elite squad. But 2 biggest wins of their career, San Antonio, Texas. Random for guys who play their ball, professional ball in New York City, their college ball in the city of brotherly love in Philadelphia. But Jalen Brunson and Mikal Bridges, I thought that was a cool stat. Going back a little bit to Game 4 last week, there was a list tweeted out, a fascinating, wide-ranging list from some of the most famous people on the planet, a celebrity seating chart. And the range is what stands out to me, right? You have the Knicks regulars, you have Ben Stiller, Timothée Chalamet, even Taylor Swift made an appearance, and I know there was some criticism on how legit her fandom is of New York, but there's plenty of documentation showing that she is a legitimate New York Knicks fan. I think the range of this was the funniest part to me, because it ranged from those A-list multimillionaires and some of the most famous people on the planet all the way to the 3rd string quarterback of the New York Jets. No offense to Brady Cook, but the fact that he's on that list as well, The Knicks feel like the only team that can pull off a list like that, right? I brought this up to some people and they thought the Lakers could do it too, right? Yeah, but the Lakers have a ton of success in the last 53 years, whereas the Knicks, I think every single one of these celebrities cleared the heck out of their schedule to make sure that they were inside Madison Square Garden for these 2 games, because this truly was the first time in their lifetimes, or for some of them, depending on the age, that they could get to a New York Knicks finals game. And they were obviously treated to one of the craziest finishes in NBA history. One more note I have from the NBA finals, and it's a cool one because obviously this is On the Call with Jake Marsh, and we specialize in broadcasting notes, nuggets, and influential people in that side of things. So we have to give our flowers to the one, the only Mike Breen.
It's over. It's over. Knick fans, this is not a dream. Your long wait has ended. Go ahead and cry. After 53 years, the Knicks are finally NBA champions once again.
There are plenty of opportunities for national broadcasters who have ties to a team to show their bias. Mike Breen, Joe Davis, who am I forgetting? There are a handful of other guys who have the opportunity, but they don't do it because they are the best of the best. And for Mike Breen, what a moment, right? You're the voice of the lowly Knicks for so long, in addition to your duties with ESPN, and talking about not being a dream and being able to cry and noting the 53 years. He absolutely nailed that call. And then there's this one as well, as the players started to be greeted by some others onto the court.
You know, life is not perfect, but there are perfect moments. And there's one right there.
That is so darn cool. I mean, you're the best player, you're the finals MVP, and then you have your dad on the court hugging it out just minutes after. And then Mike Breen, his pipes over that shot. It really doesn't get better than that. So Mike Breen, obviously, to nobody's surprise, nailed these NBA finals, and it was just so cool. So again, shout out to the New York Knicks for providing us one of the great sports stories in American sports that we've seen in a very, very long time. All right, so that's the cap on the 25-26 NBA season. I feel like the NBA, and folks feel free to agree or disagree with me, I feel like the NBA always feels like it has the shortest offseason in all of sports, right? Because usually it goes like we are right now into mid-June, and then July and August happen, football's here, and then boom, the preseason starts. I think the NBA plays preseason games in mid to end September, right? So if you're the Knicks, I know Josh Hart tweeted out where he's got to get a golf membership in New York to kill some time. I'm sure that'll be difficult, and there's definitely no shortage of options there. But by the time Josh Hart's finishing his first 18, it feels like they're going to be reporting to training camp soon after. But that'll do it for our NBA Finals talk. The World Cup. I'm going to put up my hand up and let you guys know. For those of you who know me, you know this. For those who don't, I'm letting you know right now. I'm not a big soccer fan. I don't know much about the sport. I've called some college soccer here and there, and that's been a lot of fun. But in terms of the history and the culture, I'm not too deep into that. But the World Cup catches my eye every 4 years, and I do really enjoy watching the World Cup. I love the format. I love the expansion of it. 48 nations, 32 advancing, all the little storylines and players and coaches and nations that you really never would think about as an American sports watcher, getting their shine every 4 years. So let's start things off. I don't want to say I'm on the American soccer bandwagon because I am American. But again, did not know much about this American team before Friday night when they put a 4-1 statement victory out in SoFi in Inglewood over Paraguay to win their group opener. Something that caught my eye, the most goals ever scored by Team USA in a World Cup game. Listen, I know USA has had kind of a low to medium amount of success in the World Cup in the nation's history, but 4 goals being the most ever was really surprising to me. I know teams, the elite teams, I think Germany put up 7 this week. Was it Germany over Brazil in that semifinal 8 or 12 years ago where they put up 7 as well? So I feel like teams are dropping 5+ a lot, but the fact that the United States has never put up 4, that was surprising to me. An absolutely electric atmosphere outside of SoFi after the game. Fox definitely planned on it, and they got exactly what they wanted. They wanted a big noon kickoff vibe, something you see similar to College Game Day, where it's just a crowd of people. But usually with those things, that's pregame, so there's a lot of hype, and both fan bases are kind of clashing here. But the U.S. got a dream 90 minutes, and then they pour out of SoFi, and then they see the desk with Rob Stone, Landon Donovan, Clint Dempsey, and company, and they are just going nuts. That was awesome. And that was for the first game of the entire tournament for the USA. So they're back at it Friday night against Australia. Those were a couple of things from the United States side of the World Cup that caused some interest from my brain. A couple of other World Cup storylines. We were talking about Fox's coverage a moment ago. There was a clip regarding another panel on the Fox Sports desk regarding Alexi Lalas, who's been part of World Cup coverage, I think for ESPN and now Fox as well, versus Zlatan, who obviously is one of the GOATs in the sport. Let's play that clip.
But I'm telling you right now, if this man has a big World Cup, boom, right to the top. Even over this guy. I love you, Z, but I will take Holland over you if he has a big World Cup in terms of legendary status.
That's a big statement.
I'm not sure about that. Yeah, he needs to do much more to reach the freak of nature.
Really?
Yeah.
What does he have to do? If he stars in this World Cup, given everything that he's already done.
No, but he does goals. He's a killer in the box. But I saw myself more all round. I like to play with the ball.
You think he's one-dimensional?
Yes. He's a killer in the box, but that's enough. He's intelligent. He does what he needs to do. He doesn't do more than he's able to do. He doesn't waste energy on that. I saw an interview with him. He said, my dream is to touch 2 balls, score 2 goals. I would say different. My dream is to touch 2 balls, score 3 goals.
All right. There's being ballsy, and then there's doing what Alexi Lalas did on national television to an elite soccer player. Hey, you were good, but if Erling Haaland has a big World Cup, I'd take him over you. Again, I don't know who actually would be considered better. I'd assume it would be Zlatan. But to say that in front of his face on national television, it certainly created a viral moment. I don't know if I would have seen it if he didn't say something that direct, but that was very interesting. I love you, Z, but I will take Haaland over you in terms of legendary status. I don't think Zlatan was going to take that well, no matter what happened. Fun fact, was once at a Yankee game where Zlatan threw out the first pitch, so that was cool. And then one more story from the World Cup that caught my eye. Cape Verde drawing Spain 0-0. I was watching this game earlier today. We're recording this on Monday afternoon. It was absolutely insane. Cape Verde, a small country in the World Cup, their fans making the voyage over here and to the United States of America. They think, all right, we're going to play Spain. We're probably going to lose. If we score a goal, that would be awesome. But I have never seen a tie feel like a win more than I have in this game, because Spain's obviously every 4 years one of the biggest favorites to win the World Cup. And they easily could still win the World Cup. I think I saw somebody on the broadcast saying they lost their first match in a previous World Cup and ended up winning the whole thing. With the group format, you are allowed to have some room for error. But Cape Verde drawing Spain 0-0 was just something, again, we talked about never forgetting where we were for the Knicks. For American soccer fans, soccer fans in America, this was something that we probably didn't have on our eye unless you're a diehard, and I know there's a lot of you out there. But the fact that this ended up 0-0, it was really electric. Down the stretch, Cape Verde had some chances to score. John Strong, phenomenal play-by-play broadcaster, as Cape Verde was moving towards the attacking side of the field. He was saying, Cape Verde, something along the lines of Cape Verde is not going to score. Surely they can't score. Surely they can't win, right? And it was just building the tension, thinking, holy smokes, if this happens, this would be one of the craziest results in World Cup history. And people have already been saying that this draw deserves to be in that discussion. One nugget that I found very interesting, this is from Men in Blazers with the credit. Cape Verde's goalie, who had 7 saves, Vazinha, I believe that's how you pronounce it. Before the Spain match today on Instagram, he had 46,000 followers. Solid following, but you figure, okay, he's going to have a lot more eyeballs on him throughout this tournament. After the match, 90 minutes later, you go from 46,000 followers on Instagram to 1.1 million. Crazy. That is a crazy ascension in such a small window of time. I mean, obviously it was on the international stage with the World Cup. And then I checked about 30 minutes after that tweet was posted, he went from 1.1 to 1.7 million followers. This is a 40-year-old goalkeeper for Cape Verde making 7 saves to help his country draw Spain. That was absolutely insane. So those are numbers that I didn't even think were humanly possible. But that just shows, obviously, soccer is the most popular sport on our planet Earth. And those numbers certainly back that up. So the World Cup's been fun so far, folks. So again, we have USA, Australia coming Friday on Fox, but I'll stay locked in. Again, I'd consider myself a less than casual soccer watcher at this point. When I call a game, I lock in on those 2 teams, and I know the basics of the sport, but it's provided some real drama so far. A lot of fun. Again, I've mentioned this before, but I live in Miami, and it's one of the most exciting cities in America when it comes to soccer. And I believe Uruguay versus Saudi Arabia is taking place down the road at Hard Rock tonight. I shouldn't say down the road. It's like 30 minutes away. But I know the signs are everywhere, and I drive past the stadium on the Florida Turnpike, and sorry, I was going to say Hard Rock, but Miami Stadium is all decked out in World Cup gear. It is interesting not seeing the official sponsor that we see in NFL games tied to FIFA here. That's a whole brand thing. But yes, Miami Stadium this summer, it is all decked out. The highway signs are saying, beware of traffic. I'm not going anywhere today, especially during rush hour. So the World Cup has been an awesome, and I think North America has done a fantastic job as the host through the opening 4 days, as teams will continue playing their first matches over the next couple of days. So that's the NBA Finals. That's the World Cup. And then there's one more big storyline that happened over the weekend, and I want to congratulate the Carolina Hurricanes out of Raleigh for winning their 2nd Stanley Cup in franchise history. The Hurricanes always seem to have been a solid team. Again, I'm going to preface it with this. Hockey is similar to soccer for me. Not a diehard, but I've called some hockey. Shout out to Spit and Chicklets crew. It's been a lot of fun with them, but I wouldn't say I know every little detail about the sport, but I do know, as a Florida Panthers guy, the Panthers usually have the Hurricanes number in the playoffs over the last couple of years. But obviously this was Carolina's year. Rod Brind'Amour, this is an interesting stat. The only 2 Stanley Cup wins in the Canes' history. This year, Rod Brind'Amour wins a Stanley Cup for the Hurricanes as their coach. 20 years ago, in 2006, Rod Brind'Amour wins a Stanley Cup for the Hurricanes as a player. That is really, really cool. And obviously, there are plenty of instances where guys have both played for and coached for a team. Aaron Boone on the Yankees is one that comes to mind. But the fact that he did it all as both a player and a coach, if he wasn't already etched into Carolina and the state of North Carolina professional sports lore, Here you have Rod Brind'Amour, who very well deserved hoisting of the Stanley Cup last night in Las Vegas as the Hurricanes take down the Vegas Golden Knights in a series of 4-2. All right, one more story I wanted to mention, and it is tied to the Stanley Cup. This is a story that dropped, I believe, 10 days ago, but because of the nature of the show, I thought with the Stanley Cup coming to an end, we talk all things broadcasting. Sean McDonough, fellow Syracuse alum, one of the best to ever do it. He preaches versatility. He does every sport. He's very good at every sport. But Sean McDonough appeared on the Sports Media Watch podcast a couple of weeks ago, and a headline emerged from that where Sean McDonough revealed that he felt inadequate during his early days as ESPN's lead NHL voice. And I think this is interesting for a few reasons. First off, I believe it was just after COVID when ESPN acquired rights to the National Hockey League. So were they going to bring in new guys? Were they going to use their guys to call the games? And that's obviously what they ended up doing. But some quotes from Sean McDonough that stuck out to me regarding that headline. He said, quote, "I was not good, to be quite candid about it, when we first started back 5 years ago. And it was the first time that I never really felt inadequate. And I kind of did when we first got the hockey, to the point where I thought, I used to think this was my best sport, and so did a lot of other people who know me. Now, I'm not so sure about this." And then regarding moving on to his improvement, he said, "I'm completely comfortable now. It was an adjustment when we just got it 5 years ago. I obviously followed it very closely as a fan in the 16 to 17 years that ESPN didn't have the NHL, but I hadn't broadcast a game. I had done some Frozen Fours in between, but I had no full realization of how much the game had changed, especially in terms of the speed. 20 years ago, you could look down at your notes, make sure you had the right name and number, find a little nugget in your notes, look up, and the puck was still making its way up the ice. Now, if you look down for a split second and you look up, it's hard to find the puck." End quote. I know that was a lot, but the main takeaway being this. If Sean McDonough, and this is for people like me, younger broadcasters out there who are listening, if you're in high school or college, to put this in perspective, if Sean McDonough is telling himself, I wasn't good at this, I need to improve, that says it all. I think that's a big part of our business, is knowing and having the self-awareness that you need to improve and what you need to improve on. Sean McDonough gave a few specific examples there, but this is, again, one of the best to ever do it. I'm going to use that phrase a lot on this show. And throughout every episode, because I really don't speak poorly on broadcasters, and a lot of the guys being mentioned are being mentioned for good reasons. So they are one of the best to ever do it in my mind. Anyways, I think it's a good learning lesson, right? Because nobody is ever fully there, right? We can turn corners, we can improve, we can feel more comfortable. And this goes for any profession, really. If you're not even in the sports media business and you're listening to this, it's just reps, right? What do they say? The 10,000 hour rule. Sean McDonough saying this deep into his career that as of 5 years ago, he didn't think he was good at hockey, play-by-play. That really says a lot. We all have things that we feel like we're good at. We all have things that we know we need to improve at. So Sean McDonough revealing that, I thought that was really cool of him to speak candidly. And it really puts it in perspective for us younger folks that if he's not feeling great, but 5 years later he feels much better, that just shows that reps, and more reps will get you there. And this kind of ties back to what I was talking about with Adam Schefter last week, right? I told him my long-term career aspirations. I want to call NFL games, March Madness, et cetera, et cetera. He says, Jake, right now, just focus on calling games at any level because reps will ideally lead you there. So that's what I'm doing. And that's what a lot of us are doing. You call it at any level. You want to get better. And then one day, as Adam Schefter told us last week, somebody of importance in the business notices You get your shot on the big stage and everything else takes care of itself. But shout out to Sean McDonough. I thought that was really interesting. So go ahead and listen to the Sports Media Watch podcast for that full story. But that caught my eye, and that was really cool. All right, now let's toss it back to myself for some closing segments, audience Q&A. That's wild. Tip of the cap. All right, it is time to wrap up the show with some segments. We're going to start off with a new segment. It's a basic one, but a fun one. Audience Q&A. So this morning on Twitter and Instagram, I put up an option for listeners and viewers to ask me some questions. It was very broad. It could be about my career. It could be about sports. It could be about literally anything. So I picked a few from the audience, and we are going to go with 4 here. Starting off with James Darcy on Instagram. James, what/who was your biggest inspiration to do play-by-play? And the who aspect of that, I wouldn't say there's one person specifically. I think it was just all these legends growing up and watching them in these big games. That was always cool, and being able to follow in their footsteps was always a cool opportunity. But I'd say the what is kind of what dragged me into this business and pulled me into chasing this dream. And it was the fact that, like every other kid, I grew up wanting to be a professional athlete, because all of us do. And at some point you have to come to the realization, or somebody has to sit you down and tell you, all right, little Johnny, you got to think of a plan B, because this just isn't going to happen for you. So I thought, how can I still be involved in this business if I'm not good enough to be on the field or court or course to play? And that's where the broadcasting side really appealed to me, because you're still part of the action. You're just not playing in the action, right? You get to travel to all these cool places around the country, and hopefully for my career around the world one day, and still have a fingerprint on these huge events, games, tournaments, etc., while you're obviously taking a backseat to the players and coaches who are grinding their butts off trying to compete to win and succeed. I thought, hey, to be a very small part of that, whether it's with a signature call, to get to work with some really cool, talented people all around the globe, I thought that was really cool. So I started studying the profession a little bit more, obviously picked Syracuse to try to follow in those footsteps of all those legends, to try to give myself the best opportunities in my career. And I'm definitely pleased with where things are at right now as I start off my 30s. Obviously have a long way to go, but I'd say that kind of idea is what lured me into the business, and I'm not going to stop anytime soon. I want this so bad, and we'll see what happens day by day. Thank you, James, for the question. Next up, also from Instagram, it is Noah Bobine. I apologize if I botched your name, because I don't have a pronunciation guide for you. People know I bleed those pronunciation guides, but not available here. Favorite game you've called in your career? There's plenty, folks, and I've been fortunate enough to call some really cool events so far in my career. NCAA tournament games on Syracuse Student Radio and as the voice of the University of Vermont. But there's a clear 1-1 here for me, and you're going to have to go back 4 or 5 years. During my time at Barstool, it was the first ever Barstool Sports Arizona Bowl. It was streamed on YouTube and Barstool.tv. So it was supposed to be Boise State and Central Michigan in December of 2021. That was the first game that was locked in. And a little backstory behind that is that I didn't think I was going to be calling that game until a couple of weeks before. When the game was announced, Dave and Big Cat, rightfully so, were big game hunting for that, right? They were looking for a big name to join them in the booth, which I totally understood, even though I was at Barstool. Similar to the way I launched this podcast, I wanted a big name to start off, and I got Adam Schefter. I think they were looking for Brent Musburger or somebody along those lines, and if he got to call the game, obviously the audience would have loved that, and that would have been awesome. So I sat back, let time pass, and next thing you know, I keep following up with Big Cat about it, and I get the nod a couple of weeks before, so it was a little bit of a roller coaster of a ride. Before the game happened, I do all my prep. We meet with all the teams at Boise State and Central Michigan. And then 3 days before, COVID outbreak. Game canceled. That stunk. Fast forward 365 days later, the 2022 Barstool Sports Arizona Bowl, Ohio versus Wyoming, representing the MAC, the Bobcats representing the Mountain West, the Wyoming Cowboys. This game does happen. And that extra year of waiting, it was awful thinking about, that would have been so cool to broadcast a bowl game. I'm finally getting a moment to broadcast a football game on the national stage. It delivered. We got an overtime walk-off touchdown. I'll never forget. C.J. Harris, the quarterback for Ohio. Tyler Foster, the tight end for Ohio. I think it was his only target of the entire game. And I was proud of my call there. And I'll never forget, right after we went off the air, we take off the headsets, and Dave Portnoy, who's not known for giving you pats on the back and attaboys, he said, "Great job, Jake." And that stuck with me forever, and will stick with me forever, because I felt really good about my broadcast performance. But to get that from him, great guy, but again, not known for necessarily the pats on the back stuff. That was really cool and special. And being able to be in the booth with Big Cat as well, who obviously helped bring me into Barstool, doing that with them is something I'll never forget. And it was a lot of fun. And after doing a game with those two guys, I truly believe I can be paired with anybody and feel comfortable in the booth, because you have to be prepared for whatever they're going to say. And they said some interesting things. And for those who tuned into that broadcast, appreciate that. But that's what I'd say my favorite game in my career was so far, and I'm hoping there's many, many more experiences like that. So thank you to Dave and Big Cat for that opportunity. All right, 2 more questions here. This one from Oscar SJW on X. I know it's X, Twitter, whatever it is. If you could do the play call of an iconic scene from a movie, what would it be? You know, I'm going to have to go to my favorite movie of all time growing up. And we're going to head to the Diamond, and we are going to go to the Sandlot. That's right, folks. When Benny the Jet Rodriguez pickled the beast, Hercules. He jumped over that fence, he got that ball, and then they ran around town after being chased by that big, big dog. That would have been really cool to call. And also the ending scene there, when Smalls, all grown up, is actually the broadcaster, and he calls Benny the Jet Rodriguez stealing home for the LA Dodgers. That's pretty cool that they're longtime friends, and then he was calling him steal home. And then Benny the Jet Rodriguez, all grown up with his mustache, he looks up at the broadcast booth, gives Smalls the thumbs up. That was awesome. So that's what I'd say, that iconic scene of pickling the beast. That was, I got to watch Sandlot again. That's awesome. There's probably a bunch of other scenes from movies that would be cool to call, but that's the number one that came up. All right. Last question from Big Al on X. I wonder if this is the Big Al who hits dingers at the Little League World Series, but probably not. What's your Mount Rushmore of events to announce for? Get specific, aka NCAA national title game, not just March Madness, etc. All right, so 4 specific games. It's got to be the Super Bowl, right? Because the Super Bowl is bigger than sports. I've been on the record saying I don't think the Super Bowl is the most exciting or even in the top 10 of sports days of the year, because it's just one game. You have to wait all day. Then you're not watching football again for 6 or 7 months. But obviously that one event, if that's what the kind of how this question is phrased, I'd go with the Super Bowl. I'd go with, it's got to be the end of the NCAA tournament, right? The game that leads into one shining moment. The college football national championship as well has got to be up there. And then, oh, the Masters. Of course, the Masters. How could I forget? I've got my Amen Corner painting right there. Yeah. Sorry, the opposite sides of the camera are screwing with my head, but it's got to be the Masters, college football, college basketball, and the NFL. Those are my bread and butter, and it would be an honor to be part of just one of those broadcasts in my career. So again, that's what I'm striving for every single day. So thank you for the audience Q&A. If you want me to do this weekly, if you want me to avoid this, again, open book. I'm saying it a lot throughout this episode and throughout the early stages of this show. I'm all ears. This is our show, so I appreciate any feedback you guys may have on that. All right, our next segment, it's one of my favorites, and I think it's very me and my brand. It is That's Wild. Again, it's just something I see on the internet. I bookmark it, I do some research on it, and I think, whoa, that's wild. For this, we talked about the World Cup a little bit earlier in the show. We're going to go back to the World Cup world. That was redundant, but we're going to go back to the World Cup universe. And this time, it has nothing to do with playing soccer. But we're going to go to the country of Peru, which did not even qualify for the World Cup. And I introduce to you folks what might be the most creative police operation of the year. Police in Peru dressed up as the 2026 World Cup mascots named Clutch the Bald Eagle and Maple the Moose in order to go undercover and carry out a drug raid in the capital city of Lima. The officers in their mascot outfits used a battering ram while wearing the costumes before arresting a suspect known as Pichichi. Pichichi, you're done, buddy. They recovered white powder believed to be drugs and a firearm during the operation. The reasoning for dressing up as the World Cup mascots, according to police, the suspect was a huge soccer fan, was fully caught up in the World Cup fever, so the disguises allowed officers to approach without raising suspicion. I mean, if you're this guy, if you see mascots knocking on your door, you've got to think you're being pranked or something. You've got to think someone's up to something. But allegedly, he took the bait, and credit where it's due. That's some outside-the-box thinking from the police. It also makes you wonder what other disguises law enforcement have been able to create over the years. That is a very memorable way to take down a criminal. So, folks, we have Peru cops dressed up as World Cup mascots, resulting in an arrest. That is wild. Let's wrap up the show today with another fun segment, Tip of the Cap. Yesterday, we acknowledged Kyle Long's promotion to the NFL Today and the Big Desk on CBS. Shout out to Kyle. Talked to him earlier this week. We're going to have him on this show later on, definitely sooner or closer to football season, because that would be a lot of fun. But this hasn't been official yet, but Andrew Marchand of The Athletic reported it, and he's usually spot on with these types of scoops. Because of the shuffling of the NFL rights, a lot of the ESPN number 2 package are going to be international games. So Chris Fowler, who does the premier Saturday night games, he's most likely unable to do most of those. So ESPN is zeroing in, this according to Marchand, on Dave Pasch and Bob Wischusen as Chris Fowler's replacement for the ESPN number 2 NFL play-by-play role. Jason Kelsey in play as an analyst, but I don't think anything is locked up according to The Athletic. But Dave Pasch and Bob Wischusen, they are both absolutely fantastic at this craft. Dave Pasch has been a long-time play-by-play guy for ESPN. He's also the radio voice of the Arizona Cardinals, also a fellow Syracuse Newhouse grad. So this would be a very well-deserved nod for him. He does a lot of college football Saturdays. He does a ton of NBA. So Dave Pasch is awesome. Bob Wischusen, you New Yorkers definitely know who he is, the radio voice of the New York Jets. So shout out to both of those guys. They would obviously be just incredible at calling NFL games on television with the majority of their work in this professional stage. of American football being in radio, but easy decisions for ESPN, I think. Those guys are absolutely phenomenal. So tip of the cap to those guys. Dave Pasch, Bob Wischusen, most likely going to be calling some NFL games on television later this year. All right, so that will just about do it for episode number 2. Again, episode 1, we had Adam Schefter, wanted to start this thing off with a bang. I think we did just that. This one, a little bit different of a vibe, right? Because we just had me, guestless. Let me know what you guys think. Do you like the guestless episodes? Do you want guests sprinkled in here and there? Do you want to guest every episode? I'm open. Again, I love being critiqued on these types of things because I want what you guys want. This is our show. So thank you for tuning in. We're going to try to get a guest next week, but we tried out this formula as well for episode number 2. And yeah, we'll just about do it. My name is Jake Marsh, and this was another episode of On the Call with Jake Marsh. See you guys next week.